Well, hey everyone, it's Andrew Bro. Thanks for joining me in this video. We're going to be taking a look at actually something that I see happen a lot with Microsoft Publisher is people struggle when it comes to putting multiple items per page that are all the same. So like creating one thing and then copying multiples per page and getting it into a place where you can cut that page into equal portions and everything will turn out like it looks like it's all centered up and looking nice. So I just see a lot of people struggling with this. I've actually had, just in the past day or so, had 5 or 6 different projects come in and they had to be reset up and had to like reteach this exact lesson to like 5 different people, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to do a tutorial, and then next time somebody sends something to me to print and it's not set up right, all I have to do is send them over here and they can learn how to do it, and then they can be a wizard at setting up multiple up documents inside of Microsoft Publisher. And so if that's what you're looking to learn how to do today, you've come to the right place. Alright, so the first thing we're going to need to do is open up Microsoft Publisher, and I'm going to go ahead and cover some of the most common types of documents that would be multiple up. So the very first thing is 3 per page. If you're trying to set something up like I see people doing a mailer, and in that mailer there's maybe going to be a little form or something for them to fill out, and it's 1/3 of a page tall. So what a lot of people will do is they'll go in and they'll start a new page inside of Publisher, and they'll go, oh hey, I need like 3 different columns here, and so they'll take 11 and they'll divide it by 3, right, because this is 11 inches tall, and so they'll go, alright, let's see here, we got 11 divided by 3, and it will give them this crazy number, 3.66667. Well, a bunch of 6s and then a 7, and they'll be like, okay, so that's about a little bit more than 3.5. So what we'll do is we'll come out here and we'll go, there's 3.5, so 3.666 whatever, a bunch of all those 6s must be somewhere right in here. And so they'll put a guide in, and then they'll go ahead and they'll draw in their content, like their form or something. And just for kicks, we'll like drop this in here, and then let's go over to format and we'll fill it. We'll pretend that this is their content, and then what they'll do is they'll copy it like so, and they'll put this one right here in the center. So it looks right? We've got 3 different columns here, and they all appear to be 1/3 of the page. I should just be able to cut in between here and here, and I'll have 3 pieces per page. So where's the problem with this? The problem is that right now we've got a 1/2 inch margin at the top, 1/2 inch margin at the bottom, and there's about a 1/2 inch in between these 2 spaces here, roughly about a 1/2 inch. But what happens if we cut that 1/2 inch in half, because that's where the cut's going to happen? Now all of a sudden we have a document that looks, whoops, wrong button, let's go right there. Notice what's happening here. As I zoom in, you can kind of see it now. There's less white space here and more around the edges, which also means that the one in the middle right here, that's not what I was trying to do. I was trying to drag. Alright, let's get away from the ruler here. There we go. The one in the middle is going to have thin, thick over here, and they are not going to be the same size. So I already know what you're thinking. What is the solution? Right? There must be a simple solution, and there is. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and close out of this, and we're going to say don't save, and we're going to open up a new page. Alright, so from here, what I like to do is printers will not print, or at least I should say most printers will not print edge to edge. They will print about 1/4 of an inch from the edge. So the first thing I like to do is make my margins 1/4 inch. The next thing is go over to the page size, and we're going to go down to page setup, And I'm going to tell this that the width is 8.5, but that the height is now that 3.666 that we saw a little bit ago. And notice that as soon as I click off of that, it automatically shows me that I'm going to get 3 per page. I'm going to go ahead and say OK, but I'm only seeing 1 panel of the 3. But notice now that we've got 1/4 inch all the way around. And check this out. If I go over, we'll go here to the Home tab. Let's just go ahead and insert a shape. And we'll drag this out. And now we've got 1 shape on the page, and it's got equal 1/4 inch all the way around. If I go to print this, say Control P, check it out, voila. Microsoft Publisher, wow, I almost forgot what program I was in. Microsoft Publisher automatically puts it 3 up on a page. It's got 1/4 inch all the way around and a 1/2 inch in between each piece. So when I go to cut this and I cut it at 3.66, I end up with 3 equal sized pieces of paper, 1/3 sheet, and they all have the same amount of white space around them. So that is what we would say 3 up, because there's 3 per page. So that's 3 up identical pieces. And just to show you that they're all identical and we're not just like have a whole bunch of different ones, what we'll do is we'll draw a text box in here, and let's go to the center. We'll make this white, and we'll go with something nice and bold like Arial black, and we'll bump it up, and we'll just say something like, let's just put a number 1 in here. And now watch what happens. When I go to print, it automatically puts all three panels are identical. Now there is a way to make it so that each one of them could be something different. So one thing that we get in quite often are table toppers. And let me kind of show you what that looks like. We're going to close out of this. So a table topper is basically like a trifold brochure, but it has 3 fairly equal panels. It gets folded, and then the 2 ends of the paper get stapled together so that it can stand up on a table, and you end up with like this little triangle that's now standing on the table. So what you would do for that one is you want to go with a landscape page. We're going to go over here to the page design, change the margins to narrow, and underneath this page size, we're going to say that the width is now 3.66. 3.666. All right? And now what you can do is if you're doing a table topper and like maybe 2 of the sides are going to be the same and one of them is going to be something different, or maybe all 3 panels are going to be something different, all you have to do is insert 3 pages, and we can go, actually let's just use text boxes for these. So home text box, here we go. We'll make this one panel number 1, and let's go ahead and change that to Arial black, and let's see here, let's just go up to like, there we go, there's a 1, and I'm just going to copy this text box. And right now, of course, we've got 1s in all of them, but I'm going to go ahead and change this one to panel number 2, and we're going to go down here and change this one to panel number 3. Now here's what Publisher will do when you go to print. So Control P. Alright, so we're currently on page 3, page 2, and page 1. So right now what's happening is Publisher still thinks that we're trying to print 3 of the same thing per page, and that's right here where it says multiple copies per sheet. But if I take and drop down in this drop down menu and I say multiple pages per sheet, it's going to give me panels 1, 2, and 3. And these are the edges that I was talking about. So this edge right here and this edge right here, once it's folded, so here's a fold line, you can't see it, but there's a fold here, and a fold here. And so this edge would get folded 1/3 of the way over, or basically a half of the way across the page. This one gets folded in half, and now we've got like this little triangle table stand. So it'll stand up on a table, and you can just throw a couple of staples in the end and it will stand up on a table. So it's a really easy way to like put information in the lunchroom, break room. We do here on campus at the cafeteria. We get people that want to advertise something that's going on, and they'll just make a simple table topper and throw it on the tables. So it's a really, really simple way to set it up. Okay, so that takes care of 3 up or even 3 panels on a table topper. But what are some other common ones to do multiple per page? One of them is a postcard. And you could do this a couple of different ways. You could do a tall postcard, or you could do a wide postcard. Most postcards are typically wider than they are tall. So I would start out with a landscape page. So we start out there. And they are typically, if you want to get like 4 per page, unless you're doing a very specific size. So let me make that clear. Like if you were given a project by your boss and you're supposed to be making a 5x7 postcard, there's a different way to set that up, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Or if you're supposed to be making a 4x6 or a 3x5, you can make those, and Publisher will automatically set multiple up per page. But if you want to have the least amount of cuts, then the easiest thing to do would be to make 4 per page and just cut the page in half and then half again, right? So halfway across the 11 is 5.5, and then halfway across the 8.5 is 4 1/4, right? So we would have equal cards, postcards, all the way around. So what I'm going to do is we're going to get rid of those cut lines. We're going to do this once again using our really simple multiple up setup method. And how we do that then is page design, change the margins to narrow, because we know we need to at least 1/4 of an inch between each card and all the way around the edges. And then we're going to go to size, page setup, and we know that half of 11 is 5.5, so we're going to punch that in, and half of 8.5 is 4 1/4. So there we go. Now we're going to get 4 up. Say OK. Now it looks like the page is still a letter size if we didn't look at the ruler. So if you do not have your ruler in view and you were to just look at this, it's really close to the same dimensions, I guess you could say, as a letter size page. So it's a really good idea to make sure you've got your rulers on so you can see right away that you're actually looking at a 1/4 sheet and not a full sheet here. All right, so we'll jump over here to the Home tab, and let's this time drop in a table. Let's say we're doing something that's like, let's just say it's a sign-up form. So I did something like this earlier today, and this way you get some other cool techniques here as well. So let's say I have this sign-up form, or maybe it's like a questionnaire or something. I want people to submit a question at an event. I'm doing a talk, and they're going to put their questions on this sheet of paper, and it's the size of a 1/4 page, and they're just going to quickly fill in a quick question, and then they're going to come to the front of the room, and at the end I'm going to do like a Q&A session, right? So I'll just say print your question below. All right, and let's just give that a nice little exclamation mark, and let's do this right here. We'll jump that up a little bit. All right, so right now we have this table that I just put in, but it's just a table. If I go to print, you'll notice it looks like there's nothing there, because the lines that we're seeing are just the outlines of the table, and I can see the different rows inside of that table. So what I can do is I can right click on that table, I can go down to Format Table, and I can make sure that just the bottom, the top, and the middle are selected right here in the preview where it says Preview. And then on the line color, I can go with black, and it's giving me a width of 3/4 of a point. I can drop that down to like a 1/2 a point and say OK and check it out. I've now got equally spaced lines where people can go and drop their question in down below, and then they can turn those cards in. Now check it out. When I go to print, it automatically has thrown, and I don't know why Publisher does this, but you'll notice that if I zoom in, the lines are really there. And just so that you can see they're really there, let's do it this way. I'm going to go Save As this PC. I'm going to choose a spot to save it, and I'm going to turn this into a PDF. I don't know why the print feature inside of Publisher, whenever you go to the print preview, you cannot see all the lines. No matter what you do, it will not show you all the lines. So, but here you can see all of those lines are now in place. So I can take this, print out 10 copies, and I immediately have, and then I have to cut them. So maybe I print out 10 pages, and then I cut it in half and in half again, and I now have 40 little things for people to write their questions on, and they're exactly the same size. Really cool, right? Okay, what happens though if the thing that you're trying to set up is not an equal piece of the page? So in other words, you want to do a 4x6 or a 5x7 or a 3x4 or 3x5 or a 4x5. You can still do multiples per page, but you are going to end up with more cuts. And there's a couple of ways that you can save yourself some cuts, but you really have to decide what it is that's most important to you, because well, let's just dive into it, and I'll show you some of the problems with it. So, all right, we'll get out of this. We'll go back into Publisher, and let's just go ahead and say we're going to do 2 5x7s. We can do that. Let's do 2 5x7s. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and go to Page Design. I know I want narrow margins. I'm going to go into Page Size, Page Setup, and here I'm going to go ahead and do 7 wide and 5 tall. So I now have 2 landscape 5x7s. Notice that right now it's bumping it to the top left corner of the page. If you look at the little preview here, and I don't think I can make that any bigger. It's bumping it up here. Now that's okay if you only want to have to make 3 cuts, right? So we can cut down on this line, there could be a cut, and then this line would be cut, and this line would be a cut. And we'd have 2 equally sized 5x7s, and our content can be in the middle. That's perfectly fine if we're going to keep the white space around the edges. But one of the beautiful things about setting up a 5x7 on a standard letter layout is we can actually run the color right to the edge and then trim right up to the color, and now we've kind of got a what I would call like a pseudo full bleed look. And that just means the color runs off the edge of the page. So in order to make that happen, let's see, we have 7, 8.5, that leaves 1.5 inches. So if we say we want a side margin of 0.75, that will drop us right in the center of the page. And then we have 5 and 5 are 10. This is an 11-inch tall piece of paper, so we have 1 inch to work with here. So the top margin, we could go ahead and say, we could say 0.5 on that, and that would give us a 1/2 inch at the top and bottom. Now, another problem with this is that if we wanted the design to run so that we're kind of doing that pseudo full bleed that I was talking about, where we're going to cut it right up to the edge right here, we don't want these two to be bumped right up against each other. So what do we do there? What I would do is I would take the top margin and I would make it 0.25, so that gives us some extra space down here at the bottom, and then we can go ahead and tell it that, let's see, would that be a vertical? I think that's a vertical gap. And we would make that not 0.5, we want to make that 0.25. And so now we have some extra space at the top, in between, and at the bottom. And actually we can make that vertical gap 0.5 if we wanted to. And now we've got a 1/4 inch at the top and bottom, and a 1/2 inch right here in the center. So I hope that that makes sense. I know I kind of went through that really quickly. So we'll just go ahead and say OK, and now you'll see that we've got a 5 inch tall by 7 inch wide. If we go ahead and drop something in here, I'm going to bump it right up to those margin lines that we had in there, or whatever they call those. Yeah, the margin lines. So that way you can see, here's what it would look like if we went to print. You'd get 2 5x7s, and then you could just trim right into the color. And if you do that, well, actually you wouldn't want to trim into the color on this one, because we actually, you would want to cut it as a 5x7, and you'd have like a 1/4 inch of white space around each one. Hope that makes sense there. I messed up on that. If you wanted it though to be a pseudo full bleed, or have that full bleed look, what you could do is you could turn the margins off, pull your design all the way out to the edge, and now when you print, you would now want to make sure that your content stays in here. So like if I were to create, let's go home and do a text box. If I put a text box in, I want it to be at least a 1/4 inch in. Start right there. All right, let's do a basic outline on this. So format tab, and we'll say outline, and we'll just make a black outline. We would want the text to stay in about this far, because what we'll end up doing is we're going to come in and we're going to cut just into the color, and we don't want to cut off any of our text, right? So if this was a line of text, right? So if that was the line of text right there, now we could go ahead and turn off the outline, and you'll notice when we go to print, we've now got enough room that we can cut right up to the color, or just into the color. So it'd be a tiny bit smaller than a 5x7. It'll end up being like 4.8 by 6.8, which is perfectly okay. It's still a 5x7, or most people will think it's a 5x7, but we know that we're basically putting our text inside of a safe zone. You can do that exact same thing with, so we did 4.5 or 5.5 by 4 1/4, but you could do a 4x5 and get 4 per page. You could do that on a 3x5, a 4x6, 5x7. You can even do this exact same thing if you wanted 2 8x10s per page, but you're going to end up having to print on an 11x17 size page. And if you're doing something that's a front and back project, that doesn't always turn out so well. But anyways, I hope that made sense. That's going to be it for today. Please, if you're not already, take a moment and subscribe to the channel. And also, if you have any questions about anything I've covered in this video or any other video, or there's a suggestion that you have about a future video you'd like me to create, then please post it in the comments below. I love interacting with you guys and would love to answer your questions, feature your question in a future video. You can also find me over on these other social media channels. Until next time, see you next week, guys. Bye-bye.